Test, test. 1, 2. Test 2. Test 1. Oh, yeah. I got to be down. Okay.
Good morning. Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us here this morning for this, our very tasty, eventful livings program. Obviously, we were scheduled to be out in the patio today. The rain has not played well with us for all of this month, probably. So we were happy to be able to bring it indoors and be able to bring a lot more people to the event then. It's a little bit more restrictive in the numbers out there. So it allowed probably, I would say twice as many people to enjoy the program, although I'm sure our team probably were fainting at the thought of they had twice as much food to prepare, but they're great. They're great sports. They're great sports. So I'm Liz Brandel. I'm the Director of Sales and Marketing here at Morningstar Living. And again, thank you for joining us here at our Moravian Hall Square campus. Eventful Living is a series of programs that we have been offering for many, many years. And before it was called Eventful Living, it was called some other fun name. So we've been doing it for many, many years. It's a great resource for our residents to enjoy, a lot of different types of programs, but we also open our doors to the greater Lehigh Valley community. So if you're not one of our residents and you're visiting today, we're glad you were able to join us. Now, today's Eventful Living series is the health benefits of herbs and spices. And we're joined today by Nora Jensen, who is our registered dietitian here at Morningstar Living. And also Gareth, Gareth is coming later. Where did Gareth go? He's hiding behind me, sorry. Executive Chef Matt Swicer is going to be doing our tasting for us. And I'll first of all be introducing you to Gareth Williams, who's our General Manager of Culinary Services. But I do have a couple of other things I just want to mention. If you need to use the restroom, gents is carry corner to this door here. Ladies is to your right as you go out and on your left past the elevator. If you're having to leave the room, can you go by the back door there? Because I'm going to close these doors to avoid too many interruptions. So that was number one. Number two is, please reach in your purse and switch off your little diddly thing that will ring and buzz and all of those good things. And we'll try and go through the program without too many interruptions. And then I've got one other little special thing I want to just squeak in here, because we are so proud, and I gotta tell you, we have Tyler Youngkin. Tyler has just been named, stand up Tyler, he has just been named Volunteer of the Year by Leading Age Pennsylvania. Yes. Now Tyler has been a volunteer here for, 9 years or so, and he has put in 5,500 hours of volunteer time with us, and we are so proud of you, Tyler. We are thrilled that you were the winner of all of Pennsylvania. Tyler was picked. So he was honored last week at our conference in Hershey, and we're thrilled he's learning all of his skills here in our nursing care area and with our team. Alrighty, I'm going to hand over to Gareth, who's going to introduce the program today.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Gareth Williams. I'm the General Manager of Dining Services here at Moravian Hall Square, which, as you know, is part of Morningstar Living. This is always a good event, a fun event for us. Anytime we have the opportunity to give away free food, most people seem to appreciate that. So we are fortunate today to have Nora Jensen with us, as Liz has mentioned. She is our corporate dietitian with Culiness, which is the provider here at Moravian Hall Square, and also Chef Matt Schweitzer. Some of you probably remember Matt from before, or maybe you don't, but Matt was here for several years in his career as the chef, and so he has returned to us. I also was here for a while myself, so it seems to be a theme that people will return to Moravian Hall Square, and that's just a testament to the quality of the community and the good work that it does. So again, I'm delighted to be here today. We have some interesting foods, some somewhat healthy foods for you to try today. In the back there, we have a flatbread pizza which has a parade. You'd call it a kale pesto with a topping of mozzarella cheese and sausage. So that's kind of the slightly unhealthy but deliciously tasting item. With a quinoa salad which has some chichi beans, as I call them, garbanzo beans in them, and also some arugula. And then today Matt is going to be preparing for you to order some chicken al pastor tacos. So that's a soft shell tortilla, a soft tortilla with shredded chicken. It has, I believe, it has some citrus in it, some pineapple, some orange, some cilantro, and also some chipotle pepper, which is kind of like a smoked chili pepper. So I'm sure you will enjoy that. But anyway, we're going to bring all the food to you, so you don't need to get up. We also have some nice flavored water over there, which I believe is rosemary and lemon. So anyway, enjoy the morning. I think it's going to be a great time, and I'll hand you over to Nora. Thank you.
Thank you all for joining us this morning on this bit of a gloomy day. Hopefully we can have a bright spot. It's certainly one of the benefits of all this rain that we've been having is it is wonderful for our crops and for things to be blooming. I think this is such a great seasonal choice of a topic. As many of you may know, we do have our own gardens here at Moravian Hall Square that we do harvest from as they produce. It does produce some herbs and spices that we are able from time to time to use in our cuisine here. So, and when we don't have that as an option, we do work with our produce vendors to source locally Pennsylvania grown items as much as possible. So I will be discussing a little bit about the health benefits of herbs and spices. Here, I'll click it, that's fine. Okay, so I did want to give a quick disclaimer as I delve into this presentation. If you are going to consider adding any supplements to your diet, you always want to consult with your physician or a pharmacist. Even when it comes to things like herbs and spices, I will speak a bit about the health benefits, but having things in a very high quantity at times can have interactions with different medications or different health conditions. So it is always important if you are going to be doing any kind of supplement, even if it is a natural item, that you are consulting with your medical team. I did get some great information about different herbs and spices. Next slide. And to kind of preface what the difference is, because these terms are frequently used interchangeably, herbs are more of our fresh cut leaves. If you think about the basil that we get off the bud of a plant and the softer form of our plant foods. The spices are generally the dried, crushed versions. They might be cut as well. It can also include seeds and bark. Think of things like cinnamon, which is technically a bark, all different herbs and spices that we use in cooking. So I did highlight some benefits of some of the different items that we're going to have featured here today. I do want to preface and say you're going to hear the word may a lot. Much of the research that is out there on the market with different herbs and spices is predominantly in animal studies. There's suggested and believed transference over to humans, but because it has not been fully demonstrated at this time and it has not become evidence-based, I do use the word may. So the first one I did want to address was mint, a very popular one. I'm personally a big fan of mint tea. I think that was one of my big things growing up. Anytime I had stomach upset, my mom always made a cup of peppermint tea. And we do see that the oil may be beneficial for improving digestive health, you know, for general stomach upset, bloating, people who might have irritable bowel syndrome. They may find some benefit to consuming mint, whether it's in the form of a tea or an oil. You may even find peppermint oil in some over-the-counter supplements for digestive health. It's also popularly known for treating bad breath, which is why we will see mint in a lot of our toothpaste, a lot of our oral hygiene products. And mint is a source of vitamin A, vitamin C, iron, and manganese. Matt, do you want to speak a little bit to mint?
Sure. Some of the items I would say that we cook with mint, you'll see a lot of desserts that have mint in them. The chocolate mint combination goes really well. And actually in the salad that you're going to try today, one of the optional ingredients was to add mint to the quinoa, which has a little bit of the Moroccan seasoning profile, which will hit some more of those ingredients as we go along. But so there's some mint in the salad as well.
So mint does, again, translate nicely to both sweet and savory applications. One of the greatest benefits you can see is when you're putting it in a dessert and it adds a different flavor or note, and you're able to save on, say, added sugar. Instead, you get that nice mint. The next one is cumin, which is typically associated with reducing inflammation. So thinking about things like brain health, heart health. It may lower blood sugar and cholesterol levels. It is also a source of vitamin A, iron, and calcium.
So also the salad, part of the Moroccan profile, uses some cumin as well. One of the other, I would say, big items we make here would be taco meat. It's in a lot of Mexican cuisine, as well as chili. You'll find a lot of cumin in some chili too. So
Cumin is often found in many of your seasoning blends, different ethnic cuisines. It's a pretty typical cast of characters that cumin makes it into different spice blends. That brings us to oregano, another good Italian favorite. The oregano oil also gets a lot of good press for its benefit for the immune system, for protecting the body against fungi, bacteria, and viruses. I certainly wouldn't forego an antibiotic if you're prescribed one, but it is something adding some oregano to a nice soup if you're feeling under the weather may give your immune system that little added boost. It does contain vitamin K, iron, and manganese. Manganese is not something we hear about as much. It is a trace mineral that does help with immune function. Again, supporting the idea that oregano can provide some immune boost. And it's rich in antioxidants, vitamins A, C, and E. Those are ones that are cancer fighting. They're fighting free radicals in our body that we get from environmental or dietary toxins, and they basically protect our immune system and help us to fight any external contamination.
So oregano, a lot of Italian dishes that we make have oregano. I would say we probably use a little bit more of the dried version than we do fresh oregano. It's not as commonly found. Even thyme, those two together are both way more used in the dry form than it is in the fresh form. But certainly something you can still get, grows very well, grows a lot, a little crazy if you're having it in a garden somewhere. But we definitely use much more of the dried version.
And it's a great pizza topping, I must say. So that brings us to cinnamon, one of my personal favorites. I always think about cinnamon, quite honestly, in beverages. A good cinnamon latte or your pumpkin spice, throwing some cinnamon in that mix. Cinnamon may help reduce inflammation. You also hear a lot about cinnamon with diabetes and blood sugar. Again, we don't have the definitive research to say you can hold off on metformin and start taking cinnamon, but it is something you may want to consider adding to your diet if you are someone who has a diagnosis of diabetes or a family history of diabetes. Certainly adding cinnamon to your diet can be beneficial. It's also one, too, that has that nice pairing with sweet flavors. So adding cinnamon may allow you to cut some sugar. Applesauce is a great example to me. Adding cinnamon versus adding additional sugar to a homemade applesauce or a baked pear can be beneficial for lowering cholesterol levels as well. Some of the compounds that are within cinnamon have been shown to have some benefits potentially for Parkinson's disease and dementia, for overall neurodegenerative conditions. Again, we're not at the point where we can definitively say that this is going to reduce. We don't have the body of research to support that, but there are some interesting chemicals that naturally occur in cinnamon that would be the topic of future research, depending on funding. Matt?
So this cinnamon sort of more in my wheelhouse with having the pastry background that I do. Used a lot of cinnamon. Apples is your number one by far. apple pie, cinnamon rolls, not so much in the healthy version with the cinnamon rolls or desserts in general. But again, the salad you're going to try today also has some cinnamon in it. So it's widely used in a lot of different cuisines.
It adds a nice warmth. I also am a fan of using cinnamon in tea as well. Like a nice apple cinnamon tea is quite comforting. Can make a good substitute for, say, apple cider in the cooler months if you're looking to watch your sugar intake. Cilantro, a very polarizing spice. Some people do have the gene that makes cilantro taste like soap. I am not in that camp. I absolutely love cilantro. What's very interesting about cilantro is as much as we hear about cinnamon and the benefit for your blood sugar, there is some promising research about cilantro and blood sugar. So much so that if you are on diabetes medications, they suggest that you do not take a cilantro supplement because there may be a further reduction in blood sugar. So again, this is a good thing to discuss with your physician. If you are pursuing any kind of herb or supplement, just to make sure that there aren't interactions with medications and producing too much of a good thing. We do see vitamins A, C, and K, small amounts of potassium and folate, so good for your heart health, and it is rich in antioxidants as well. So we also have the dried form too. Some of you may be familiar with coriander, which is also from the same plant. I am personally a big cilantro fan, but Matt?
Yeah, so am I. Cilantro in fresh guacamole, in pico, in the pineapple salsa that's on the taco today. Big Mexican influence with a lot of use of cilantro. So
the coriander does also translate nice with some of our Indian cooking as well. A popular flavor there too, but it is one generally when I'm prepping it myself, I leave it on the side because my husband falls in the taste like soap camp, unfortunately.
Yes.
Ginger is another nice warming root that we hear about quite a bit. Does help relieve nausea and GI upset. That's pretty common for a lot of people that they see that effect, whether it's in the tea, it's in a ginger chew. I personally do use ginger chews. I run long distances, and sometimes it can be a little harsh on the stomach, and I use ginger chews to help me overcome some of that GI upset. There is anti-inflammatory and antioxidant properties as well. So you will see ginger commonly paired with turmeric, which is another root that's associated with anti-inflammatory properties, potentially beneficial for people who may have arthritis or other joint injuries. And there is possibly a role in regulating cholesterol and blood sugar levels. It's still a much younger science, unfortunately, exploring the benefits of these herbs and spices. We do know that many cultures over the centuries have utilized these items in their cuisines and demonstrated benefits, as well as making food taste delicious.
Ginger lemon, I love that combination. Is one of my favorites. Ginger bread, obviously making gingerbread got that nice warm spice to it. Goes well with your cinnamon as well. So it's I would say definitely much more in the dried form that we would use here than the fresh, which is here on the table. But we use both here. So
Definitely translates well to beverages. And again, kind of similarly, if you're someone who is looking to cut back on sugar but finds ginger to be of benefit, you may find that a ginger tea is lower in sugar but still has some of those benefits compared to, say, ginger ale. Chili, another polarizing one. For some people, it's a favorite. Other people, it may be more difficult to tolerate. Big on the anti-inflammatory and antioxidant properties. We have all different forms and kinds of chili, different even topical products. Some people may be familiar with different creams for arthritis pain, nerve pain can be beneficial. There are some possible benefits for heart health and metabolism. There's even some suggested benefit with weight maintenance. I would argue that you can only eat so much of it, and that's where the real benefit works. But by producing a sweat, there may be a little bit benefit for metabolism as well. Chili is a good source of vitamins A, C, and iron, believe it it or not.
So one of the spices that we certainly have to be careful of with this population. So we use some to some degree and try to offer some on the side to allow you to add more if you prefer things a little bit spicier, if you can handle the spice. I feel like I've eaten a little too much of that when I was younger. And now I can't so much handle a lot of that now as I've gotten a little bit older. But in the al pastor marinade for the chicken, we used the chipotle peppers in adobo, so the little cans you can buy at the store. So, and then we have some fresh jalapenos, so things we would make in the kitchen, fresh salsas and things like that. We would use either fresh jalapeno or even the pickled that come in the jar. So,
I'm also a big fan too of the Mexican mole, which actually uses like a sweet along with the chili and that pairing and how it kind of nicely balances the flavor profile. So I found this particularly interesting when I was doing some research for this presentation was about rosemary and the potential benefits for the mood health. And again, this is an area where we do need more research, but there's some preliminary studies that show there may be benefits to mood regulation in terms of reducing anxiety or depression through the oral consumption of rosemary, as well as the aromatherapy properties of rosemary, so smelling the essential oils. It also does taste delicious too, so that can never hurt. It is rich in manganese, again, which is a trace mineral that does have benefit for your immune health. And there are also some possible benefits for brain health. This is another one that had some compounds naturally occurring in rosemary that may be linked to benefit for Alzheimer's, Parkinson's disease, areas that we do need to do some further research in, but certainly we can only benefit from consuming these herbs and spices in our diet.
I would say rosemary tends to work well with a lot of the proteins that we marinate things in. So pork, chicken, turkey, they all go really well with rosemary. It's in a lot of our marinades and rubs that we would use for protein. And then in the water today, that lemon rosemary combination is really good. Something I enjoy too. Very refreshing.
That is a great segue because I did want to speak a little bit about hydration, herbs, and spices and the different ways that we can enhance our beverages, especially with summer on its heels, the warmer weather, and trying to drink more, finding creative ways to get ourselves to drink more beverages in the summer. And a lot of our herbs can be great ways to add additional flavors to drinks without necessarily adding more calories, adding more sugar. Herbal teas. I'm a big fan of hibiscus tea, for example. I'll put hibiscus and make like an iced tea. Peppermint does lend nicely too to making a tea as well. You can certainly use cinnamon. There's a variety of different herbs and spices that we do see that occur in teas. Our herbal teas, generally, you do have to confirm with the label. Sometimes they may be a blend, but most herbal teas may not contain any caffeine. And caffeine can be a little bit dehydrating, so it's something we do want to keep an eye on, especially when you're trying to meet your fluid needs. But having an herbal tea can be a great way to add a little bit of a flavor to your summer drinks. There's definitely been a lot of herbal infusion teas, if you haven't seen that on the market recently. And they make these tea bags specifically for making iced teas in the summer that are herbal with no added caffeine. They often do have fruit and different herbs in them. Another one is what we have here today is those infused waters. It does add a nice hint of flavor. I'm a big fan of getting a big pitcher and putting it in the fridge overnight and allowing it to infuse, add some fruit, add some different herbs. So we certainly do that in reception over at Moravian Hall Square. We do it over in healthcare and up in personal care. And we do have some here today as well. But it's a great way to add a minor benefit to your beverage and a delicious flavor. And last but not least is certainly garnishing drinks as well. We know that we eat and we drink with our eyes before our mouth. So making things visually appealing. We see this berry water in the slide with a nice sprig of rosemary. Adds a hint of flavor, but also an elevated experience to your beverage. So the biggest benefit of all when it comes to herbs and spices, although we have some suggested benefits to different properties of these herbs and spices, is really about what we're replacing them with. by adding different herbs to cooking and reducing the amount of salt, the amount of fat you might be adding to a dish, you can really make a healthier dish and get a better goal towards your overall health goals by reducing your sodium intake. Salt can be tricky. Salt can be tricky. A lot of times when I'm doing education with people, sometimes these seasoning blends that we look at, we think of a different herbs and spices, there can still be some sodium in there and it can be sneaky. So it's a good idea to keep an eye on what is actually in an herb seasoning. Mrs. Dash, which has been around for a number of years, has come out with multiple seasoning blends that do not contain salt, but contain a variety of herbs and spices for different cuisines and different kind of dishes. McCormick seasoning has also taken that tack as well, and even some of our generic brands too, where they have these salt-free seasoning blends that are flavorful, they're delicious, and you don't need to nearly add as much salt to your cooking. Certainly adding seasonings, and Matt can elaborate on this better than I can, but enhancing the flavors and aromas in our food as we're cooking them. You know, it's one thing to season the food after you've cooked it, but that process of how we start digesting long before the food reaches our mouth. We start digesting with our eyes, we start salivating, our body's producing enzymes to start breaking down the food. So really that enjoyment of the process. And the visual appeal as well. You know, a well-seasoned dish is much more visually appealing. I also really like the use of herbs and spices to get myself and other people I may be cooking for to try different foods that they may not ordinarily like, different ways of seasoning, different ways of preparation. I did prepare 2 handouts for today that are over there if you didn't have a chance to grab them. The first one is one that's about using herbs and spices instead of salt. And what I love about this one is it does describe what different applications to use with different spices. So if it's something that maybe is not as familiar to you, say tamarind is not something you may be that familiar with, it does go well in soups, poultry, sauces, and rice. Different applications. You can try a little bit of a mix and match. The other handout actually comes from an organization called Old Ways. If you did attend my presentation on the Mediterranean diet that I did with Chef Sal, I did speak about Old Ways. They are an organization that's committed to heritage diets, including the Mediterranean diet, the traditional Asian diet, African diet, and Latin American diet. But they also elaborate on different herbs and spices. They speak a bit about the benefits as well to some of these different typical foods as well. One of the ones we didn't feature today, but I'm a big fan of, I'm originally from Connecticut, is nutmeg, being from the nutmeg state, and some different ways you can apply nutmeg to your cooking. They talk about parsley as well, which is a great benefit for heart health. Parsley is a big one we see in the summertime. And it's more than just a garnish to our dishes. Talking about turmeric as well, which gets a lot of good press for the anti-inflammatory properties, the benefits for your joint health. Dill, I'm also quite a big dill fan as well. Good benefits for antibacterial, against free radicals, the antioxidants as well. So that translates beautifully to a lot of our warmer weather dishes. It has that nice cooling effect. And thank you all for attending here today. I believe Matt is going to be demonstrating a little bit about the al pastor tacos and how he's incorporated some of these different herbs and spices. Does anyone have any questions? So the fresh, I will say with the fresh spices, you do have some of the water content. When it's dried, it is a little bit more concentrated. The good news is when spices are generally dried, they're not adding any additional preservatives. It's generally more of a freeze-dried process, so it does preserve the nutrition that is in it. So you don't see a significant alteration in the nutrition content. If anything, dried is beneficial. It's actually more potent in flavor than the fresh varieties. Slightly different flavor profile, but similar nutritionally.
This is probably an unusual question. Suppose I use like oregano, rosemary for tea. What would be the limit? A teaspoon or 2 or 3? What would I really get well? if I used a teaspoon of oregano or all these herbs in a tea and honey or maple syrup?
A teaspoon would be a safe amount. It's generally when people are consuming the supplements or the oils that they're having higher concentrations of something, in which case you would want to consult with a physician because of potential interactions with medications or different health conditions or lab values.
My ancestors for centuries had been drinking chamomile tea, and my grandmother grew in the yard, in the garden, and we would cut the leaves, everything boiled, and it was very beneficial. Now I have to buy from stores just the flowers, but it's not the same.
No, it's certainly not.
Actually, I drank all my life chamomile tea in summer or winter, and I had perfect attendance in high school, and also in the Air Force, and never was sick. But right now, at 85 and a half, Mother Nature's catching up to me, you know.
Well, certainly chamomile tea is one of those delicious aromatics. Some of our florals that blend nicely. I didn't elaborate too much into that today, but they do make for great beverages with our teas, the dried or florals.
I was just wondering about expiration of spices and stuff, like.
Matt, do you want to speak to that expiration of spices?
That's always one I worry about. Yeah, I throw them away all the time. Yeah. Did someone hear a question?
You're back on.
Sorry.
Just bear with us.
The expiration, the real reason it's a lot of best buy dates and expiration dates because of the flavors will eventually, they die off. It's not nearly as strong and potent as a flavor. So if you're looking to, get that true flavor in, you may even have to add twice as much to get the same flavor. So yeah, it is pretty important to follow what those kind of suggested dates are. And I know sometimes it can be difficult because you have to buy a container that's so big and you only use a little bit of it, but.
And the little one's even more expensive. Okay, question here.
Is there really a difference between cinnamons from different regions for the health benefits?
The benefits, there is some slight benefit, more so with the flavor compounds than the actual nutrition content, but just different from region to region with some slight flavor components.
Did you have a question?
Yeah. I help out with a food bank in the Stroudsburg area from time to time, and we also grow plants for them as well, herbs and some tomatoes and peppers and so forth. And they prefer an herb culantro instead of cilantro. Are you familiar with that, and what's the difference?
I admittedly have not heard of culantro. Have you heard of culantro? But that will be one I'm going to look into. Yeah. Certainly. Does it seem to be similar to cilantro? Does it seem to be similar to cilantro? Yes, they use it for the same purpose. Okay. Well, thank you for sharing that. I worked with a chef who was growing different varieties of mint and speaking to the different varieties, say of cinnamon, but different regions. There was a chocolate mint, a Thai mint, and how there are slightly different flavor profiles. And it's really, this is a great base, the information that we presented here today. But certainly there are countless varieties, especially when you get to different ethnic varieties. Thank you for the assist, Annie. She said culantro is more in Caribbean, Latin American, and Southeast Asian cuisine. It's similar to cilantro, but more intense and lingers longer. So that will be one I'm going to have to look for. Like you said, farmers markets are great places to try different heirloom varieties, regional varieties of different herbs and spices.
Another question here.
Is there a difference between manganese and magnesium?
Yes, they are two different minerals, manganese and magnesium. Magnesium we need it in slightly higher quantities. Magnesium is definitely important for heart health, nerve health, as well as brain health. And manganese is needed in trace amounts, and it's beneficial for your immune health.
This is more of a, I guess, a comment. We can't forget our vitamin pills because they contain a lot of the same benefits that some of these, and I know it's thrown off some of my blood work if I've had the supplement, the spices and herbs, plus the vitamin pill.
Absolutely. So it's important to note when we're eating a little bit of cilantro, a little bit of dill in our diet, it is a small amount, and we are eating a small amount of it. It's more so when we get into the pills and you're having a larger quantity, we are going to see more of those interactions where there may be more of a duplication of nutrition. So it's always a good idea to run things by, because I have seen that in practice where somebody may be taking a few different supplements, and before they know it, they're well over the recommended upper limit for vitamin A or something of that nature. So it is beneficial to consider the different sources in your diet. Thank you for that. Any other questions? Or does everyone have a mouthful?
We have another one. Alrighty, we've got a question over here.
It's really not a question, it's just an addition. The other benefits of herbs and spices, I'm allergic to a lot of the chemicals and bug sprays. I make my own bug spray out of the herbs and spices, and it really does work.
I have gotten one at a local farmer's market. I live in Bucks County. That is with the, and it smells fantastic, and it does the trick. I will say it does the trick.
Alrighty, do we have any more questions? Wow, we had a lot of questions here. Nora, we had a lot of questions.
How's the food? That's my question for all of you.
I apologize because I forgot, but which herb did you say was good for, like, in my mind it was arthritis, but like it was like range of motion.
For inflammation, turmeric and ginger are two of the big ones that we see. And a lot of times, if you look at like some of the different joint supplements, they'll contain those things. I personally I'm a runner myself, and I'll do like a turmeric tea.
Mm-hmm. Good. Well, we're finishing up delivering some of these tastings here. So what's the verdict on the food? I don't see any on the plates yet. I think we've got a lot of empty plates. Now, what was in the salad, Chef?
All right, there's quite the list of ingredients in the salad. It started with a quinoa base, and then the chopped up vegetables were carrots, dates.
Ooh, I love dates.
Chickpeas, cucumber, and then there's a dressing, which, let me just go read it before I tell you the wrong things, because I'm trying to remember off the top of my head. All right, so it was olive oil, lemon juice, honey, cumin, cinnamon, ginger, chili powder, garlic, and tahini. So I have some of the dates were up here, some of the tahini is here. And then you mix that dressing in with all your vegetables and your quinoa. And then I let that sit overnight. And then when you're close to ready to serve, then I added a handful of arugula. You mix that in for that little bit of a spicier note. And then some crumbled feta for that salt. So it kind of balanced all those different ingredients. There's a lot of ingredients in that.
That is a lot of ingredients there.
If you're not familiar with tahini, it's sesame seed paste. And a lot of it actually is used typically in hummus, like the chickpea dip. It adds a really nice neutral base for a lot of dressings. I'm a big fan of it myself. Pairs beautifully with citrus, herbs, and spices. But and it keeps in your pantry, which is also a wonderful thing if you're trying to make a little bit of something here and there.
That's good, because I had some trouble finding tahini recently, and then I finally got it, and I was happy to see that it lasts for a little while. Oh,
I would highly recommend if you go to the Middle Eastern markets in Bethlehem, like Azars or the Allentown Farmers Market, those locations are generally quite good with stocking tahini.
Good. Oh, another question. Hold on.
First of all, thank you. The food was delicious. Your suggestion as far as keeping the spices and the herbs, are they better kept in the refrigerator or a cupboard, or what would you suggest?
Matt, do you want to take that one? About storing? I mean, I will say, so when I get fresh herbs, one of the things I like to do, because it's just my husband and I, is I like to freeze them. So cutting them up and freezing them. I've even seen a suggestion online of freezing them in a little bit of oil, like in an ice cube tray, and then they add nicely to dishes as the year goes on, especially if you're going to be going, say, to a local farmer's market, or you might be growing or have a neighbor who's growing. That can be a great way to preserve the fresh items and have them get a little more shelf life.
Yeah, that's
what
what
would
I
you?
was going to say too.
Oh, okay.
Between that and then we keep most of our fresh herbs. They're in the refrigerator now, but I mean they can sit out for a little while. Most of the stuff plant-based can sit. We go through a decent amount. Dried stuff, obviously, the cool, dried place out of the sun is your best kind of place for those things. So.
I like the idea of freezing the herbs, because I know I go and buy I only need a little bit of time for a recipe, and you come home with a big giant bunch, and it's what am I going to do with that? So yeah, I mean, that's a great idea. Yeah. Alrighty, well, thank you all. Thank you, Nora. We're thrilled that you were able to present for us today. Matt Schweitzer, Chef Matt Schweitzer, he's our executive chef here at Morning Star Living. We're always happy to have Matt on board. And of course, Tyler's going to take a bow also. So thank you again for joining us today. Hopefully by the time we have our next eventful, the rain will be gone, hopefully. And on that note, I would say that I am on the point of pressing the button on my print. If you're on our mailing list, you will receive a copy in your home. Obviously, if you're one of our residents, you'll certainly receive a copy. But we hopefully will have you back to enjoy more programs as we go into the next catalogue of events. Already, thank you again, Nora. We appreciate your expertise, and also Chef Matt Schweitzer. Thank you for coming. And thank you, Gareth.
Hello, everyone. Just a quick word before you all depart. We do have some flavoured water available here for you, so please help yourself to some. Thank you.